You're not broken, but the way you approach fitness probably is. Hello and welcome to another episode of Beast of Burden. My name's Paul Bassett. If you've ever felt broken, maybe your joints hurt, maybe your whole body is aching, or maybe you just feel like sports and fitness is off the table, it's not something you can do, then I've been in your place. I know exactly what you're feeling like. And the good news is it can be fixed. I work in London, in Wandsworth, helping people take charge of their health and get fit and actually reclaim fitness that they'd once lost. I spend day in, day out diagnosing issues, listening to people and coming up with solutions that I know work. And I've been in your, if it is you that's experienced this kind of feeling of being broken, I've been in your shoes. I know exactly what you feel like. And actually, the reason I'm sitting here is because I managed to solve it. I struggled for years and years feeling inadequate about my physicality. I had so many joint problems. I was getting injured every time I went out for a run. Even when I did other sports, I just struggled. I struggled with just how my body reacted. I felt broken. I felt in pain a lot of the time. Even when I wasn't doing any exercise, I was suffering from a lot of knee pain, a lot of back pain, and just general weakness. And it started to kind of become my character. It started to become the person I thought I was. I thought I was that person who couldn't do these things. I remember watching the Olympics, watching the long jump or the triple jump, particularly the triple jump, and thinking the sheer forces going through people's knees, it just blew my mind, and I winced looking at it. It's a bit, to be honest, it's a bit like me now with heights. If I see someone climbing up a big mountain or something like that, or I see someone balancing on something that's very high off the ground, it makes me feel physically sick. But it's watching people do the Olympic lifts. So, you know, picking up that barbell, throwing it overhead, that would scare the hell out of me because my knees were in such pain. And this was in my early 20s, late teens, and right up until 28 when I started to get my act together. Now I'm 46. I haven't had any knee pain since probably the age of about 31, and maybe even before that. And I can still remember that person I used to be who felt like I was in pain all the time. But it's been so long that I no longer have that physical memory. I have a memory that's vague and it's faded more. It's a bit like my desire to smoke. I mean, I used to want to smoke all the time, and it was very close. That sensation, I was never that far removed from the urge to go and have a cigarette before I gave up. And it's the same with pain. I was never that far away from that pain stimulus. That memory of my body hurting was very close. And now it seems very far away, and I can't really remember what it's like to have, not the pain, I can imagine what the pain is. What I struggle to remember is the fear leading up to the pain. The worry, the thought that if I do this, something's going to happen. I'm so far removed now that I took up rollerblading, which is really knee heavy, and it's a lot of falling over, particularly when you're learning. And it's a tough sport. It's all about balance. It's all about body control. It's very difficult, very different to my kettlebell work, which is about body control, but it's very different. It's bilateral. Both feet are planted on the floor. You're not going down any hills. You know, it's very predictable. It's difficult in a different way, but it's very predictable. Whereas the rollerblading is very much about physical freedom, and that's something I lacked for many years of my life. So if you've been feeling like you're broken, maybe you just constantly get injured. Every time you take a sport up, you get injured. Maybe you feel too injured or too weak to even start something, and you become this person who's broken. I can't do this because this is the person I am. I can't go for a run because I have flat feet. I can't do this because one leg's longer than the other. I can't do this because I have a low back pain. I can't do this because I have too much body weight. I'm here to say that is, I don't want to underplay it because it's real, because I experienced it, but it's a self-limiting belief based on a lack of another operating system. And one of the things that we're dealing with now in the current era is these different iterations of artificial intelligence. Every couple of months, they seem to create a new model, and that new model usurps the old one. Now, if you are using one of the main providers, say ChatGPT, and you start using the current version of it, it's a very different animal to the version 1 or the version 2, whatever they released initially. It's much more capable. It's much more expansive in what it can do. And that's the way I see myself now. That perversion of me was a previous model, a previous operating system that wasn't capable of doing what I wanted. And I've upgraded my software, I've upgraded my learning capacity, and now I feel able to do things that weren't even on the table. I didn't even have a system to even approach them before. How did I solve my knee pain? That's the big thing. There's a lot of people experience it. And I think how you solve your knee pain versus how you solve your back pain are the same. I read a book, and I implore you to go and read it as well. It's called Born to Run, and maybe you have. But everyone gets out of books different things. What I got out of the book, I started reading it because I had lots of knee pain. My wife had bought it, and she was like, oh, why don't you read this? And I was intrigued by the blurb because there's people who were running like 200, 300 miles, this tribe of individuals called the Tarahumara, and they could do amazing things. And I was like, this is absolute, this isn't real. Okay, people can't do that. I could barely run for the shops. What I ended up doing was just getting sucked into this narrative. It's a great narrative. The guy, Chris McDougall, who wrote it, who I actually bumped into in a Vivo Barefoot shop. And Vivo Barefoot are zero drop shoes. They sell them in the UK, but I know they're global. Very popular barefoot shoe. I know it's an oxymoron, but they're a shoe which does allow you to feel the ground because they're flat and they have very minimal padding and things like that. Anyway, so he was in the shop and I met him and I said, look, you changed my life. I don't know if he might hear that all the time, who knows? But he did. The book genuinely changed my life. And everyone gets different things out of the books they read. But for me, I was reading it and he was obviously a very broken person as well. He was struggling to run. He started getting coaching. And by the end of it, he was running these ultra marathons, 50 miles through, undulating terrain in a hot country with a load of other people who were experiencing the same freedom he was. And I was thinking, I want that. And he's managed to solve that. And what the book gave me was it just said, Paul, you aren't the problem. You are the problem, but you're capable of doing what I'm doing, what these people are doing. It's just you're not doing the things that would get you there. You're not broken, you're just doing it wrong. I'm doing it wrong because no one showed me. As when we're children, we start to disappear from that nature's God-given operating system of complete plastic flexibility and the ability to move fluidly. And obviously we're learning things, so we do, kids can be a bit clunky, can't they? But we start to have this great approach to movement and exploration. We don't stop moving, really. We get up and down off the floor, falling over, rolling around, pushing our limits, and then we stop. It's almost like we get to school, secondary school, play stops, all about learning, sit at a desk, sit at a computer. These days, we've also got computers, but in the past, you put in these big old hard shoes. Sometimes, depending on the amount of money your parents had, you would either replace the shoes regularly or not enough. Solid shoes, very thick base, no movement, driving around, no longer any walking, desk jobs, etc. And the body starts to tighten up, seize up, the movement capacity gets narrow, you become very good at certain things, and then anything outside that scope becomes difficult. The body goes, well, why am I maintaining these systems that I don't use? And you start to close down your movement capacity. And I got to that point very quickly. I probably got there quicker than other people. I was a very stiff kid. And that didn't stop. And that just got worse as I got older, as I became more sedentary in many ways. So I read that and I thought, right, I'm going to start trying to find out how to do something differently. That set me on a path to learning about the way I run, about my body, about movement. And no one had ever taught me about movement. Has anyone ever taught you about movement outside of tennis coaching or learning to swim? No, no one ever teaches you to run. We've all got two legs, so we seem to think we can run. Well, we've all got two arms and two legs, but not everyone knows how to wrestle. We've all got two arms, two legs, but not everyone knows how to swim. But here I was going, no one's ever taught me how to run. What happens if someone teaches me how to run? What happens if I change my mechanics? What happens if I do something different than I've always been doing? The question then became like, what is different? How do I find out what different is? That led me down a path of finding out lots of information about lots of people. And the great thing about the book is it gave you enough information to start piecing together a path. And obviously back in when I read it, almost 17 years ago, 16 years ago, much less on the internet. A lot of these things were quite fresh. Even things like the five-finger shoes, the shoes that look like gloves, those were very new. They'd only come out a few years earlier. So those are a big thing. Now you can find them anywhere, but back then it was pretty fresh. You go out and run out on the road wearing Vibram five fingers, everyone stares at you. But by the end of it, I was running in sandals, I was running barefoot, I have flat feet. You know, I started to solve my knee problem, and quite quickly, within 6 months, I stopped having any knee pain because of the way the changes I started making to my running, certainly the running technique, the shoes I was wearing, and I hadn't even been strength training at that point. So if you've got a problem that you feel is limiting you, then the question I have is, it can be solved because there are people out there solving it. You've just got to start finding those people and aligning yourself with their knowledge base, because they're going to accelerate your progress so much faster. And what I don't want to do in this video is tell you this is the solution to your problem. You know, there's lots of different solutions depending on the problem. I've got a couple of clients at the moment, got a lot of shoulder problems. There's a checklist that I go through to help them reduce their pain, and usually it's internal, external rotation of the shoulder as a first port of call, and that generally fixes 70% of their problems, and then we go into other things. But I can pull upon these pieces of information straight away and solve people's problems very quickly. If I can't solve it, then I can refer up. You know, I can put them in touch with other people who know how to solve the problem. So feeling broken, feeling like you're not making progress, feeling like you're the limit is fine to do, because you are the limit. Okay, I'm the thing holding my business back. I'm the thing making these videos either better or not as good. I'm the person responsible. And it's hard to face responsibility, because sometimes when you've got a ton of other responsibility on your shoulders, you don't want to have added responsibility. But you're also carrying a lot when you don't solve the problem. I was carrying pain all the time in my head with pain. I know there's people out there who experience more pain than I did, but there was part of my brain that was just dedicated to pain. And as soon as the pain went, it was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I was no longer dealing with it. And yes, it was very hard to solve. I had to work extremely hard, and I had to be extremely focused on bettering myself. But there's no way I would go back to that person who was in pain. I mean, lack of freedom I had. Lack of freedom in movement. I couldn't even sit in a cinema without being in pain. I couldn't sit in a plane. It was excruciating being on a plane. It was excruciating sitting in a theatre where the chairs were too close to each other. It was excruciating going for a run. That is not freedom. And I'd rather put the work in and solve the problem, however hard that is. Now, one of the challenges I have now is sometimes I have a series of minor problems that aren't painful enough for me to solve. And it takes quite a lot of effort to solve a problem. And if there isn't the pain there, you're less inclined to solve it. So I don't think you can solve everything straight away. And probably the one that you'll solve is the one that's the most acute. So if you do have something like low back pain, and every time you train it hurts, you need to find someone who understands back pain and how to coach you through it. And then you need to put the time in to solve it. And once you've ticked that off, it might solve the other problems for you. It might give you more freedom, and it's easier to solve those other problems. I do realize now that I have a system of diagnosing an issue and resolving the issue. It's like a good rule of thumb. If I want to do this, I need to do this, 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 and this. Then I get better at it. And I've applied that to the new skill of rollerblading, which I've been trying. I've applied it to other areas of my life. And I'm sure I could apply it to other areas that would improve me even more. Because I'm far from the perfect person that I know you're thinking about. So if you are broken, the solution is there. It is out there. The world is full of people with solutions. And it is important sometimes to sit down and just talk to someone, let it out, you know. Maybe I'm quite functional. Maybe it's the male part of me. I just want to solve a problem. When I worked with a business coach, I had a problem. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I don't want to reinvent knee health. I don't want to reinvent the squat. I just want to know how to do it. Show me how to do it properly without pain, and I'll do it. That's very liberating because it just saves some other space in my brain, because I don't have infinite space in my brain, despite my level of intelligence. I don't have infinite space to deal with everything at once. So can you help me provide a shortcut there that I can just access and solve a problem? And then I can solve that one, and then I can solve that one. And I get on and have a social life, get on and be a father, get on and do other things in my life. That is the gift that you can give yourself. And if you are struggling with stuff, then you can get in touch with me. Very happy to point you in a direction of someone who might be able to help, or some resources out there, or just give you the right questions that you need to ask yourself. So you aren't broken, it can be fixed, but it's going to take some work, but it's definitely worthwhile when you do that. Please share this podcast and this episode with a friend and help me grow this podcast. Please subscribe to either the iTunes, Spotify, or this YouTube channel as well. And we can grow this and reach more people. It's good for business, it's good for the health of people, and it'd be very much appreciated. I've been Paul Bassett, and this is Beast of Burden. Until next week.